when 23-year-old Sofia Martinez ducked under the security barrier and sprinted toward the Madison Square Garden stage during Michael Jackson's performance of Man in the Mirror. She had no idea her desperate leap of faith would shock 20,000 fans and change her life forever. What Michael Jackson did next had never been done before in pop music history, and it launched one of the most unlikely careers in entertainment. Before we dive into this incredible true story, hit that subscribe button because what you're about to witness will prove that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most beautiful rewards. This isn't just about crashing a concert. This is about the moment when crushing debt met divine opportunity on the world's most famous stage. It was March 13, 1988, at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Michael Jackson was performing the 15th show of his Bad World Tour, and the energy was absolutely electric. Fans knew they were witnessing the king of pop at the absolute peak of his powers, fresh off the success of Thriller, and now dominating the charts with Bad, Smooth Criminal, and The Way You Make Me Feel. Sofia Martinez was 23 years old and should never have been in the audience that night. A recent graduate of Berklee College of Music, she was drowning in student loan debt and working double shifts as a waitress at a Manhattan diner just to make ends meet. Concert tickets to see Michael Jackson at Madison Square Garden cost more than Sofia made in a week, but this wasn't just any concert for her. This was her last chance to save a dream that was slipping away with each rejection letter she received. Growing up in a cramped three-bedroom apartment in Queens with her parents, two younger brothers, and her grandmother Elena, Sofia had learned early that dreams were luxuries her family couldn't afford. Her father, Carlos, worked double shifts at a textile factory, while her mother, Maria, cleaned office buildings at night to make ends meet. Music lessons were out of the question, but Sofia's grandmother had different plans. Elena had been a singer in her native Puerto Rico before immigrating to New York in the 1960s, and she recognized the gift in her granddaughter's voice when Sofia was barely old enough to speak. Every afternoon after school, while her parents worked and her brothers played in the streets, Elena would sit with Sofia at the old upright piano she'd bought secondhand from a church sale. "Music is not something you buy, mija," Elena would say in her accented English. "Music is something you carry in your soul." For hours, they would practice scales, work on breathing techniques, and study the great singers on Elena's collection of vinyl records. Michael Jackson was always Elena's favorite example of vocal perfection, and Sofia absorbed every note, every run, every emotional nuance of his performances. When Sofia earned a full scholarship to Berklee, her entire family celebrated like she'd won the lottery. But the scholarship only covered tuition, not living expenses, books, or the countless other costs that came with pursuing a music degree in Boston. Sofia worked 3 part-time jobs throughout college: cleaning dormitories at dawn, serving food in the cafeteria at lunch, and tutoring younger students at night. Her professors marveled at her dedication, often finding her in practice rooms at midnight, perfecting arrangements and compositions while other students slept. Sofia had been obsessed with Michael Jackson since she was 8 years old, when her grandmother played Ben to comfort her after her parents' divorce. Something about Michael's voice, his fearless creativity, and his ability to move both body and soul spoke directly to her heart. She knew with the certainty that only true artists possess that she was meant to be a performer. For the past 4 years at Berklee, Sofia had studied vocal performance and music theory, graduating summa cum laude with a degree that was supposed to open doors in the music industry. But those doors remained stubbornly closed. For 6 months since graduation, Sofia had sent demo tapes to every record label, talent agency, and music producer in New York City. The responses were always the same: polite rejections that praised her technical skill while questioning her commercial appeal. While the applicant demonstrates exceptional vocal training, read one particularly painful letter from Columbia Records, she lacks the unique star quality necessary for mainstream success in today's market. The rejection that nearly broke her spirit came from Quincy Jones's production company just 2 weeks before the Michael Jackson concert. Sofia had spent her last $200 to record a professional demo at a studio in Queens, choosing 3 songs that showcased her range: a powerful R&B number, a delicate jazz ballad, and a Michael Jackson cover that highlighted her ability to match his vocal complexity. When the rejection arrived, it felt like a death sentence for her dreams. The submission shows technical competence but fails to demonstrate the innovative artistry required for our roster, the letter stated coldly. We recommend the applicant consider alternative career paths within the music industry. Sofia had cried for 3 days after reading those words, seriously considering giving up music altogether and accepting her manager's offer to become a full-time restaurant supervisor. Her grandmother, Elena Martinez, found Sofia's rejection letters scattered across her tiny Brooklyn apartment floor and sat beside her on the worn couch they'd bought secondhand. "Maybe they're right, abuela," Sofia had whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Maybe I'm just fooling myself with these dreams." But Elena knew something the record executives didn't. She'd watched her granddaughter perform at family gatherings and local talent shows, had seen strangers stop their conversations mid-sentence when Sofia's voice filled a room. "Mija," Elena said firmly, "those people have never heard you sing with your whole heart." They don't know what we know. What the record executives couldn't capture on demo tapes was what happened when Sofia Martinez opened her mouth to sing live. Her voice had a quality that was both technically perfect and emotionally raw, powerful enough to fill an arena, but intimate enough to make each listener feel personally connected to every word. 3 days before the Michael Jackson concert, Sofia was working her usual evening shift at Murphy's Diner in Midtown when she overheard two customers at table 12 discussing their plans to sell their Madison Square Garden tickets. The businessman had lost his job and couldn't afford to keep the seats he'd bought months in advance. Sofia spent her rent money, $180, on a single general admission ticket, money she was supposed to use for her student loan payment that was already 2 weeks late. "Sofia, this is complete madness," her best friend Carmen had said when Sofia called to tell her about the ticket purchase. "You'll be so far from the stage you won't even see Michael properly, and you can't afford this right now." But Sofia had a different plan, one she hadn't told anyone about, not even Carmen. She wasn't just going to watch Michael Jackson perform. She was going to find a way to sing with him, to prove to the world and to herself that she belonged on that stage. The night of the concert, Sofia arrived at Madison Square Garden 3 hours early, studying the venue layout like she was planning a military operation. She noticed that during the opening acts, security focused their attention on the expensive floor seats where VIP guests and celebrities sat. The general admission areas, she observed, were less heavily monitored once the main show began, and the guards became caught up in watching the performance themselves. Sofia had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying every available video of Michael Jackson concerts, timing security movements, and even visiting Madison Square Garden during a Knicks game to familiarize herself with the layout. She had calculated exactly which songs would provide the best opportunity for her plan, ultimately deciding that Man in the Mirror offered the perfect combination of emotional vulnerability and solo performance that might make Michael receptive to an unexpected collaboration. In her small Brooklyn apartment, Sofia had practiced the scenario dozens of times. She knew exactly how many steps it would take to reach the stage from various points in the general admission area. She had timed herself climbing over furniture that approximated the height of the security barriers. Most importantly, she had prepared musically, not just memorizing every word of Man in the Mirror, but creating detailed harmony arrangements that would complement Michael's lead vocals rather than compete with them. Sofia had chosen her outfit with surgical precision. Dark jeans and a black top that would help her blend into shadows, comfortable sneakers for running, and most importantly, a small piece of paper in her jacket pocket with the lyrics to Man in the Mirror, written in her own handwriting, along with harmony parts she'd arranged during countless hours of practice in her apartment. She had even practiced performing while running, knowing that she would likely be out of breath when she reached the stage. For 90 minutes, Michael Jackson delivered a masterclass in live performance. He was in magnificent form, moving with supernatural grace through hits like Billie Jean, Beat It, and Smooth Criminal. His moonwalk was flawless, his voice soaring through complex vocal runs that few singers could attempt, let alone master. Sofia sang along to every song from her spot in the general admission area, but she was carefully moving closer to the front with each number, timing her movements with crowd surges during the biggest dance numbers. As the night progressed, Sofia could feel her opportunity approaching. Michael typically performed Man in the Mirror near the end of his shows, a powerful anthem about personal transformation that showcased both his vocal range and his message of social consciousness. She knew this song by heart, had practiced it thousands of times in her tiny bathroom, where the acoustics made her voice sound bigger, imagining herself on stages just like this one. When the opening piano notes of Man in the Mirror began echoing through Madison Square Garden, Sofia made her move. The crowd was swaying to the inspirational message, 20,000 voices joining Michael in the chorus about making a change. Michael stood center stage, bathed in brilliant white light, his voice carrying across the arena with a power that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. It was during the second verse, as Michael sang, "I'm starting with the Man in the Mirror," that Sofia saw her moment. A group of fans near the front barrier had moved to get a better angle for photos, creating a small gap in the security line. Sofia didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, she ducked under the barrier, sprinted across the narrow space between the crowd and the stage, and began climbing the platform. Security spotted her immediately. 3 guards rushed toward the stage from different angles, their radios crackling with urgent communications. But Sofia was fast and desperate, fueled by 6 months of rejection and the knowledge that this was her last chance. She reached the stage just as Michael was entering the bridge of the song, her footsteps echoing across the vast platform despite the thunderous music. 20,000 people gasped in unison. Michael stopped singing, his hand freezing on the microphone as he turned toward the sound of running feet. He squinted through the stage lights to see a young Latina woman in dark clothes standing at the edge of his stage, breathing hard, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and fierce determination. "Please," Sofia called out, her voice somehow carrying across the arena despite having no amplification. "Please, Michael, I just need one chance to show you what I can do." The security guards were closing in fast, but Michael held up his hand, the same gesture that had stopped armies of screaming fans, and they froze in their tracks. "Well, well," Michael said into his microphone, his voice carrying that familiar mix of amusement and curiosity that millions of fans loved. "It seems we have a very determined young lady who wants to join our little celebration tonight." The crowd roared with approval, but Michael gestured for quiet, his movements graceful even in this unexpected moment. "What's your name, beautiful?" he asked, walking toward Sofia with the fluid steps that had made him famous. "Sofia Martinez," she replied, and somehow the acoustics of Madison Square Garden carried her voice to every corner of the venue. "I've been dreaming of this moment since I was 8 years old, Michael. I know I can sing with you." Michael studied her for a moment, seeing something in her eyes that reminded him of his own desperate hunger when he was starting out with his brothers. This wasn't just an overzealous fan looking for attention. This was a young woman with fire in her soul and desperation in her voice that spoke of real dreams and real talent. "And what exactly did you plan to do once you got up here, Sofia Martinez?" Michael asked with a slight smile, genuinely curious about this brave young woman who had risked everything to stand on his stage. Sofia pulled the crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, her hands shaking slightly as she unfolded it. "I want to sing Man in the Mirror with you," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I know all the words. I know harmonies. I know this song means everything to you because it means everything to me too." Michael looked at the handwritten lyrics, noting the careful harmony notations in the margins, the obvious preparation and dedication this represented. "You know," Michael said, turning to address the crowd, "this young lady has just reminded me of something very important. Sometimes the biggest dreams require the biggest risks. And sometimes," he paused, looking back at Sofia with genuine warmth, "sometimes the universe sends us exactly what we need when we need it most." The crowd erupted in cheers as Michael made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "I'd like you to meet Sofia Martinez, who's going to help me finish this song tonight." Michael handed Sofia a wireless microphone, his touch gentle but encouraging. "You wanted your chance, beautiful. Here it is. Show them what you got." Sofia took the microphone with trembling hands, hardly believing this was actually happening. Michael nodded to his band, and the music began again from the bridge. For a split second, Sofia felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. 20,000 people watching, Michael Jackson himself standing beside her, her entire future hanging on the next few minutes. But then the music filled her soul, and Sofia's nerves disappeared completely. This was where she belonged, on a stage, sharing music with people who understood its power to heal and transform. She found her voice on the first note, strong and clear, blending perfectly with Michael's as they sang together about making a change and starting with yourself. Michael was grinning now, delighted by this unexpected collaboration. Sofia's voice was everything he'd hoped for. Technically perfect, but emotionally authentic, powerful enough to match his own while bringing something uniquely beautiful to the song. He began encouraging her with small gestures, nodding when she hit particularly stunning notes, giving her space to shine during the verses they split between them. The song built to its emotional climax, both voices intertwining in the final chorus as 20,000 people sang along, creating a moment of pure musical magic that none of them would ever forget. When the last note faded away, Madison Square Garden exploded in the loudest applause many had ever heard. Sofia stood there breathing hard, tears streaming down her face, hardly believing what had just happened. Michael put his arm around her shoulders and spoke into his microphone, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, Sofia Martinez, the young woman who reminded us all that sometimes you have to create your own opportunities. The crowd chanted Sofia's name as Michael walked her to the front of the stage. You have real talent, beautiful, he whispered in her ear, his voice warm with encouragement. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different. Promise me you won't give up on this gift. I promise, Sofia whispered back, meaning every word. Security gently escorted Sofia back to the crowd, but she was no longer the same person who had climbed onto that stage. In the space of one song, her entire life had changed forever. Within hours, bootleg recordings of Sofia's duet with Michael were being shared among music fans across New York City. By the next morning, videos filmed by audience members were being copied and distributed throughout the industry. Record label executives who had previously rejected Sofia's demo tapes were calling her grandmother's house by Tuesday morning. The same A&R representatives who had told her she lacked star quality were now competing to sign the young woman who had duetted with the king of pop at Madison Square Garden. The most ironic call came from Columbia Records, the same label that had crushed her spirits just weeks earlier. The A&R manager who had written that she lacked unique star quality was now offering a six-figure recording contract. When Sofia reminded him of his previous assessment, there was an awkward pause before he stammered. Well, obviously the live performance context changes our entire perspective. But the transformation went deeper than industry interest. The young woman who had climbed onto that stage was different from the one who had climbed down. She had proven to herself and to 20,000 witnesses that she belonged on the world's biggest stages, that her dreams weren't just fantasies but achievable goals. 3 days after the concert, Sofia received a phone call that would change everything. Is this Sofia Martinez, the young lady who provided vocals for my show at Madison Square Garden? The voice was unmistakably Michael Jackson. Sofia nearly dropped the phone. Yes, sir. Yes, Michael. I wanted to check on you, beautiful, Michael said, his voice carrying that warm concern that made him beloved by millions. I hope you're not planning to give up on music after our little performance. Never, Sofia said firmly. You made me promise, remember? Michael's laugh was musical, the same joyful sound that had charmed the world for decades. Good girl. Now I have some people I'd like you to meet. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? That lunch led to meetings with Michael's management team, who helped Sofia navigate the sudden industry interest in her story. More importantly, Michael became an informal mentor, offering advice about the music business and encouraging her to develop her own artistic voice rather than simply copying others. Over the following months, Michael would call Sofia regularly, checking on her progress and offering guidance about everything from vocal technique to dealing with the pressures of sudden fame. What surprised Sofia most was Michael's genuine interest in her musical development. He didn't just want to help her get a record deal, he wanted to ensure she grew as an artist. He sent her books about music theory, introduced her to jazz musicians who expanded her harmonic understanding, and even invited her to observe some of his recording sessions where she learned about the technical aspects of making music that they hadn't taught at Berklee. During one particularly memorable phone call, Michael shared something that would stay with Sofia for the rest of her career. The music industry will try to change you, beautiful. They'll want to make you sound like everyone else. But what made you special that night at Madison Square Garden was that you sounded like you. Don't ever lose that. 6 months later, Sofia Martinez signed her first major record deal. Her debut album, titled Man in the Mirror, in honor of that magical Madison Square Garden night, went platinum and launched an international career that would span decades. But success never changed Sofia's perspective on what had really happened that March evening. Michael could have had security throw me off that stage, Sofia would say years later when she was headlining her own arena tours. Instead, he saw a desperate young woman who loved music and gave her a chance to prove herself. That's the kind of artist and human being he was. If this incredible story of courage and opportunity moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of taking risks for their dreams. Have you ever taken a leap of faith that changed your life? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about the moments that make legends.